They're watching you right now. As I speak these words, your digital fingerprint is being logged, analyzed, and filed away in vast underground data centers. The screen you're looking at, a two-way window, the microphone on your device, never truly off. Welcome to the hidden reality, the world behind the world that they've constructed to keep you docile, distracted, and in the dark. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt that strange sensation? That odd feeling that something just isn't right with the official story? That prickling at the back of your neck when you hear the smoothly delivered explanations on the evening news? That's not paranoia. That's your intuition, the last uncorrupted sense you possess, desperately trying to wake you up. The truth is scattered in plain sight, fragmented and disguised, but visible to those with eyes willing to see. I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to offer you a key. What you do with it is your choice. It begins with the water. Common, essential, seemingly innocent. Yet for over 7 decades they've been introducing compounds designed to affect your neurological function. They call it a health measure, a benefit for all. What they don't tell you is how these compounds interact with the electromagnetic frequencies bombarding us every day. The science was perfected in remote facilities during the middle of the last century. The goal? Compliance, reduced cognitive resistance, susceptibility to suggestion. Think about it. When did you last feel truly clear-headed? When did you last experience genuine, independent thought unclouded by the chemical fog they've surrounded us with? The programs never ended. They simply went darker, deeper, with better cover stories. Black budget projects with no oversight, no accountability, and unlimited resources. The declassified documents only hint at what they were doing in the 1950s and 60s. Ask yourself, with today's technology, what are they capable of now? Have you noticed how they've militarized the weather? Strange patterns in the sky, metallic particles in the rainwater, unexplained temperature anomalies. They're conducting atmospheric experiments on a planetary scale, testing delivery systems for compounds that affect regional populations differently depending on genetic markers. The droughts, the floods, the natural disasters, engineered crises to test population response patterns and implement resource control protocols. The truly frightening part? This is merely the visible spectrum of a much larger operation. Let's talk about the missing time, the gaps in satellite coverage, the annual drills where certain systems mysteriously go offline for maintenance. What happens in those windows? What moves through our skies, our waters, our very reality when the official eyes are deliberately closed? The recovered materials that defy conventional physics, stored in specialized facilities, studied by scientists who never publish their findings, alloys with impossible properties, biological samples that contain no recognized DNA but demonstrate undeniable signs of consciousness. They've reversed engineered technologies that manipulate gravity, time, perception itself. The craft seen by thousands of credible witnesses, triangular, silent, capable of maneuvers that defy Newtonian physics. These aren't foreign adversaries, they're domestic projects, decades ahead of acknowledged science. The evidence isn't hidden, it's compartmentalized, divided among contractors, subcontractors, special access programs. No single person sees the whole picture. Those who start connecting dots too effectively suffer mysterious health episodes, sudden financial troubles, or simply disappear into the machinery of discreditation. Consider the Antarctica operations, the massive resources diverted there since the 1940s, the international treaties that make it the only truly off-limits territory on Earth, the prominent figures making unpublicized visits, the scientific bases that don't appear on official maps. What did they find beneath the ice? What are they protecting or containing? The global infrastructure being built isn't for the future they tell us about. The deep underground complexes connected by high-speed transport systems, the seed vaults, the data repositories designed to withstand electromagnetic pulses. They're preparing for something they don't discuss on the news. You've been conditioned to laugh at this information, to dismiss it instantly. That's by design. The most effective censorship isn't banning information, it's training you to mock it reflexively, to avoid the social cost of being associated with conspiracy theories. But consider the pattern of revelation. What was ridiculed 10 years ago is quietly acknowledged today. The mass surveillance programs, the remote influence operations, the biological research with no ethical boundaries, the weaponization of social media algorithms to shape mass psychology. They reveal fragments of truth only when forced to, or when that information no longer threatens their control systems. By then, a new layer of deception is already in place. The devices in your home that listen constantly, the applications that track your movements, your associations, your interests, the cameras that recognize your face, your gait, your emotional state. This isn't marketing. This is a global neural network building predictive models of human behavior, identifying outliers, mapping the social connections of those who ask too many questions. The pharmaceutical control grid tightens every year. Mandatory treatments, chemicals that dull curiosity, flatten emotional response, induce dependency. They've pathologized normal human reactions to an inhuman system. They've medicalized resistance. The educational system doesn't create independent thinkers, it creates compliant workers, obedient consumers, people who follow procedures rather than questioning underlying assumptions. History is sanitized, critical inquiry is discouraged, pattern recognition is deliberately frustrated. Why do ancient civilizations around the world share the same symbols, the same stories, the same astronomical knowledge? Why are certain archaeological discoveries immediately classified and removed from public view? What explains the megalithic structures that couldn't be built with today's technology, let alone the tools officially available to their creators? The timeline we've been taught is a fiction. Human civilization is far older, far more advanced, far more complex than the approved narrative allows. The evidence is literally written in stone, encoded in monuments aligned with celestial patterns so precise they reveal a mathematical understanding supposedly impossible for their era. These cultures didn't disappear. They were systematically erased, their knowledge preserved only in elite mystery schools that evolved into today's secret societies. The same symbols they carved in stone appear in corporate logos, government seals, and architectural layouts of major cities, hidden in plain sight, meaningful only to the initiated. The ancient knowledge included technologies of consciousness, ways to access information fields beyond the five senses. These techniques were suppressed, demonized, pushed to the margins as superstition, while the physical sciences were elevated. There's a reason for that. One approach to knowledge empowers the individual. The other makes you dependent on external authorities and specialized equipment controlled by institutions. The most classified research today focuses on the same frontiers those ancient traditions explored: the nature of consciousness, its relationship to physical reality, its persistence beyond the biological platform. They've confirmed what the mystics always knew, but they've weaponized that understanding. Remote viewing, directed consciousness effects on physical systems, the entanglement of minds across distance, the storage and transfer of consciousness. These aren't fringe topics. They're the subject of black-budget research programs with implications so profound they would transform our understanding of reality itself. You're living in a frequency war. Certain vibrations enhance awareness, intuition, compassion, immunity. Others induce fear, confusion, division, illness. Guess which ones are being amplified in our environment? The architecture of modern spaces, the unnatural lighting, the pervasive electronic signals, the frequencies embedded in mass media. This isn't accidental. Every revolution in communication technology has been weaponized against the public consciousness. Radio, television, the internet, social media. Each promised democratization of information. Each became a more sophisticated control system. The next frontier is direct brain interfaces technology that will access your thoughts while claiming to enhance your cognitive capabilities. The smart cities being constructed aren't designed for human thriving. They're surveillance grids with built-in punishment systems, restriction of movement, access, resources based on compliance scores. Convenience is the bait, total control is the hook. The financial system is being deliberately destabilized to usher in fully programmable digital currencies. Money you can only spend on approved items within approved timeframes from approved vendors. Money that can be turned off with a keystroke if you say the wrong things, associate with the wrong people, travel to the wrong areas. The push for a cashless society isn't about efficiency, it's about creating an inescapable system where every transaction is monitored, approved or denied in real time and linked to your digital identity. They call it security. It's a technological prison. Why are they rushing experimental biotechnology with no long-term safety data? Why the coordinated censorship of medical professionals who question the narrative? Why the destruction of control groups needed for proper scientific evaluation? Why the obsession with tracking systems tied to medical status? This isn't about health, it's about implementing a control grid that was planned decades ago, leveraging crisis to bypass the normal resistances of a free society. Fear short-circuits critical thinking. Emergencies justify measures that would never be accepted under normal conditions. Look at the pattern of emerging threats. each one requiring you to surrender more autonomy, more privacy, more freedom to the very authorities creating or exacerbating those crises. Climate, pandemics, terrorism, economic collapse, each real in some sense, each amplified and manipulated to serve an agenda of centralized control. The technocratic vision being implemented has no place for human unpredictability, creativity, spiritual connection. Humans are seen as resources to be managed, nodes in a network to be optimized, data generators to feed the artificial intelligences being trained to replace human decision-making in every domain. These systems are not neutral tools. They're designed with embedded values, hidden assumptions, and kill switches controlled by those whose names are never spoken in media they own. The algorithms are black boxes even to those who created them, evolving toward goals we haven't authorized and may not survive. The merger of corporate and state power accelerates. The revolving doors spin faster. The same individuals move between regulatory agencies, corporations they're meant to oversee, think tanks that shape policy, and media platforms that control public perception. It's not a conspiracy. It's a seamless, integrated system with shared objectives and values, fundamentally opposed to human freedom. They don't need to meet in smoky rooms to coordinate their actions. They emerge from the same educational institutions, belong to the same organizations, attend the same conferences, share the same fundamental worldview. A worldview that sees ordinary humans as a problem to be solved. The targeting of children intensifies, the corruption of natural development, the deliberate confusion and destabilization of identity formation, the separation from parents, from nature, from normal social bonds, the substitution of authentic human connection with technological simulations. The constant exposure to nihilistic programming disguised as entertainment. This is deliberate spiritual warfare against the next generation. A child disconnected from their essence, their history, their biology, their spiritual nature, becomes an adult unable to recognize, let alone resist, the synthetic reality being constructed around them. The food supply has been weaponized. Nutrient-depleted soils, crops designed to withstand increasing doses of toxins, processing methods that destroy natural properties while adding compounds that affect gut health, brain function, reproductive capacity. The microbiome that regulates your mood, your immunity, your cognitive clarity is under sustained attack. The agenda transcends politics. The theatrical conflicts between allegedly opposed parties obscure their fundamental agreement on issues that matter most to the control system. The boundaries of acceptable debate are tightly controlled. Genuine alternatives are systematically marginalized, ridiculed, or infiltrated. Notice how rapidly certain ideas spread across supposedly competing media platforms, using identical language, identical framing, identical emotional triggers. This is coordinated narrative deployment, what some call talking points, but operates at a much more sophisticated level, targeting psychological vulnerabilities identified through mass data analysis. The true history of governance is darker than most can accept. The programs developed to control foreign populations have been turned inward. The techniques refined in distant conflicts now focus on domestic populations. The classification system exists not to protect citizens from enemies, but to protect the control structure from citizens who would oppose it if they knew its true nature. Many who serve this system believe they're doing good. Compartmentalization ensures they see only their small piece of the operation. The most effective prison is one where the guards believe they're protecting the inmates, where the inmates believe the walls are for their benefit. What can you do in the face of such comprehensive control? First, recognize it. Awareness itself is revolutionary. The system relies on your unconscious participation, your tacit acceptance, your willingness to dismiss this information without examination. Protect your mind. Question everything, especially your own assumptions. Detox from their information streams. Reconnect with natural cycles, natural foods, natural social bonds. Strengthen local connections and local resilience. Their systems require your consent, your data, your attention, your fear. Withdraw them. The technologies they deploy against human consciousness have vulnerabilities. They cannot overcome a mind that is aware of them, that recognizes their influence techniques, that refuses emotional manipulation. The spiritual dimension of this conflict is its most important aspect. Despite all their technology, all their predictive algorithms, all their behavioral modification techniques, they fear the unpredictable nature of the awakened human spirit. They fear the contagion of courage. They fear what happens when enough people simply stop complying with their own enslavement. We stand at the convergence point of multiple agendas, multiple timelines. Their system requires total spectrum dominance, control of information, resources, movement, health, money, identity. Any significant disruption creates opportunities for mass awakening. This is why they're rushing, this is why they're making mistakes, this is why they're revealing aspects of the control system previously kept hidden. The window is closing for either side. The next few years determine whether humanity enters a technologically enforced dark age, or breaks through to a level of freedom not seen in recorded history. You're not hearing this by accident. Something in you is already awake, already questioning. That same something knows that despite how comprehensive the control system appears, it remains vulnerable to a force they can't measure, predict, or control, the force that activates when human beings reclaim their sovereign relationship with consciousness itself. The choice remains yours. For now, what reality will you enforce with your belief? What future will you authorize with your consent? What world will you create with your courage? They're counting on your silence, your compliance, your willingness to stand down as the final pieces of their system lock into place. They've shown you what they're building. They've told you their intentions. They're implementing them in full view. The great question of this moment isn't what they're doing, it's what you're going to do about it. Choose wisely, choose soon. Everything depends on it.